Class 6 Science Separation of Substances, Chapter 3. Separation is a technique which we must remember we have to use in our daily life. If we want to remove unwanted chilies from the food, we hand pick them and separate. There are also instances when we need to separate substances from one another. For example, we separate the tea leaves from the tea by using the sieve, isn't it? We separate the plastic bottles from the collected dustbins. We even separate the egg yolk from the albumin, isn't it? And we separate the peas from the pea shafts. So there are different methods of separating, and which we are going to learn in this chapter. Some of the common methods that we are going to study today are: one is threshing. This threshing is a very common process of separation used by farmers when they want to use the grains or the seeds of the plants such as rice and wheat to obtain as food sources, and they want to convert it into atta for making chapatis. So these grains have to be harvested, cut, and then need to be separated from the stalks. So these dry stems which are separated, this process is called threshing. The process of beating harvested crops to separate the grains from the stalk is called threshing. This is it. As you can see, these grains are collected and the stalks are remaining in the hand of this lady. It is done manually by the hand with the help of a machine also. This manual threshing machine is done by holding a pile of crop and beating it on a rock or a hard surface, loosening the separating the grains from the stalk. Sometimes threshing is also done by crushing the harvested stalks using bullocks. You have seen this, isn't it? Threshing is also done by the help of the machines such as called combines, harvesters. This figure, this is the combine harvester. Now this machine not only reaps, but it threshes as well as cleans the crop in one operation. Threshed grains may still contain some seed coverings and tiny pieces of leaves or stems collected called chaff. This can be separated by the process of winnowing. This is the process of winnowing. You must have seen this, isn't it? This method is used to separate the chaff from the grain by the help of the blowing wind. The mixture of the chaff and the grain is taken in a weighing basket. Farmer stands on a high level, lets the mixture fall on the ground. Grain being heavier falls vertically, and the lighter chaff is little bit carried away by the wind away and forms a separate heap away from the grain. So this is how the grain and the chaff is separated, and the chaff can be used as a fodder for the cattle, and the process is called winnowing. Let us understand the process by an activity. This process of winnowing: materials equated plate, rice, tiny bits of paper, chair, and some newspapers. We are going to go into the open ground or in the garden and spread the sheets of paper, and then take some rice mixed with the bits of paper in the plate and stand on the chair and let the mixture slowly fall and shake the plate. We'll find the rice grains, they will form a separate heap from the paper bits, and we'll conclude that blowing air or wind can be used to separate the lighter particles of paper bits, and the heavier particles of the rice grains are totally separated. Another process is called hand picking, where the rice, wheat, pulses that we buy from the market, they usually contain some unwanted things called impurities. This may be harmful for us. It can be stones, small pieces, unwanted grains, black things. Often these impurities are different looking from the actual grain that we eat, and so it can be easily spotted and then hand picked and separated. So this is the process of hand picking. In this method, the quantity of the mixture that is going to be separated is small, and Remember, the unwanted substance that we are going to present, that is present in the smaller quantities, is also very small. The shape, size, and color of this unwanted substance must be different from that useful one, isn't it? Otherwise, how will you separate? Next process is called sieving. Now, this is the process of sieving. You must have seen your mummy doing it at home, isn't it? Chalni, isn't it? That we call in Hindi or in Bangla. If the components of the mixture of different sizes, means here the size is mattering, they can be used for the process of sieving. A smaller component passes through the pores of the sieve, where a larger component will be left behind. They may be stones or husk. This method, that is the sieving method, is used in some homes to separate wheat barn that is bigger in particles than a flour. Husk is actually the seed coverings or the small piece of stem leaves. However, sieving wheat flour is not advisable, as wheat barn, which is removed during the sieving, is rich in nutrients, is also rich source of the fiber. It is better to remove these, remove the visible impurities rather than by hand picking, rather than this sieving process of rice barn or wheat barn. The process of sieving is also used to separate pebbles and stones from sand at the construction site. Means when there is a building going on to be constructed, the sand has to be clean, isn't it? So unwanted stones and pebbles, they are removed by the process of sieving. The sands, the stones and the pebbles present in the mixture may remain in the sieve and they are removed, and the fine sand particles can be used for the mixture to be made. Activity to understand sieving. The materials required are powder, chalk, wheat flour, newspaper, sieve. What we are going to do in the first process is sieve the flour on the newspaper using the husk or any other impurities mixed to it. Next process, we are going to sieve a small amount of the flour mixed with fine powdered chalk. And in the third process, we are going to sieve the mixture and find out if the chalk powder can be separated from the flour. The observation would be that husk and other impurities could be easily separated, no doubt, from the flour. But in the second case, the chalk powder, however, will be not difficult, will not be easy to separate. They will be remaining mixed up. The conclusion is husk particles are bigger than flour particles, so they are retained in the sieve. Particles of chalk powder and flour do not differ much in size, so the chalk powder actually could not be separated. They will retain in the sieve. The sieving can be used to separate only particles of different sizes. Let's remember, we are going to see the processes which are used for number 1, wheat grains from the stalks. This will be threshing. Number 2, unwanted wheat grains from the chickpeas. This is what it is. We can use the hand picking process, isn't it? Chickpeas. And wheat barn from the flour, it can be sieving. So from the corn grain, that could be winnowing. Last process we are going to see about this today is sedimentation and decantation. When pulses are being washed in the home, you must have seen they're kept in a bowl of water for some time. The pulses being heavy, they settle down, and the lighter particles like the dart or the insects or tiny piece of straw and other impurities may actually float at the top as impurities. This water which contains these impurities can be drained off, poured off, and then we can use that pulses. This process involves two methods actually. One is called sedimentation, the other is called decantation. Sedimentation is the process in which separating the insoluble solids suspended in liquid by allowing them to settle down. And the solid particles that settle down during the sedimentation are called sediments. So these are the sediments. And the top liquid is called the supernatant liquid, clear liquid that can be poured off. So the process of pouring out the clear of supernatant liquid without disturbing sediment is called decantation. The liquid above the sediment is called supernatant. Supernatant means floating on the top. For example, a mixture of sand and water can be separated by sedimentation and decantation. The clay water can be also done by this process. The mixture is left undisturbed for some time and the clay or the sand, they being heavier particles, settle down, and the water on the supernatant top can be poured off in a separate container. Observation: cleaning of rice by sedimentation and decantation. Cup of rice and bowl of water is taken. The rice, does the rice little bit look glassy when it is mixed with the water? Now, in the water in the bowl, we allow for it to stand some time without disturbing the layer of the rice, and decant the water. The mixture is allowed to stand. The most impurities actually come up and float on the surface. This rice settles down. Decanting the water, we get the clearer rice, the no neat clean rice. So it can be cleaned by the sedimentation decantation process.